Mirrors are windows into other universes, aren't they?
No.
My mate Paul says they run on quantum power, and that's why you can see into an alternative dimension in which everything's the same as our realm, but backwards.
What does Paul do?
Well, he worked in a tennis ball factory where he had to catch the tennis balls, but he was fired from that. Now he's unemployed. Sorry, am I wasting your time?
Yeah.
Mirrors are windows.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode where we talk about gurus and the crap they come up with. That's the truth. So let's talk about debt. Is debt a good thing? We all know, I'm going to say rich dad, poor dad, where he came up and talked about debt. And he'll be like, oh, I'm in debt. Okay. And he talked about it as if it's the biggest thing possible. To me, I think it's as silly as saying, oh my goodness, I owe the mafia money. What the mafia are going to do about it? It's their money, right? That's silly because at the end of the day, it's going to come back. It's going to bite you with time. Okay. It's a lot slower than the mafia. The bank is not going to cut off your head, but at some point they will. Okay. At some point they'll cut off something more important, which is your name. Right, which is your livelihood in your country. Okay, so you can see any of these people, you just give them time. And I kid you, look at anybody who's talked about debt as if it's a good thing. You give it time and it'll come back and bite them. And I say this because, again, at the end of the day, there's a net worth effect. Okay, so the question is, how much net worth do you have? If for some reason you're just sitting on debt and your debt keeps going up, but your assets are not going up, that's a problem. And in general, these guys, when they talk about these things, that's because they want to sell you a course. And from that course or the books is where they make their assets go up while they keep pushing the debt. But be careful with debt is what I can say to you. Debt is one of the worst things possible. You could be used in a good thing. And a lot of people that use debt is because they have the assets to back it. Okay, so if you see someone like Elon Musk who goes in and got an equity for it, let's talk about net worth. So if he's got an equity for 400 million, okay, just for the sake of it, it's 400 billion, that's the truth. So if he's got a net worth for equity of 400 billion, now here's the point. He can't go in and just give, he's not worth 400 billion, okay, and that's one mistake. I'm going to delve into it now. That's one mistake that people think. They think because someone has got equity, okay, so I've got my own app, right? My app is worth X amount. I can't turn around and be like, oh my goodness, what X amount? I'm rich. I'm going to go sell everything. When you sell everything, it goes down to zero. Okay, that's the truth. So when Elon Musk claims that, oh my goodness, he's worth 400 billion and everyone's worshiping him, he knows the truth. Okay, I can tell you, Elon Musk himself doesn't sleep at night. That's because he knows that net worth is tied to Tesla, it's tied to SpaceX, it's tied to his companies. So while he's worth that, it's not his money. Okay, because if he turned around and sold those shares, it's reported immediately. We all know you can go in and search most of these companies are public, so you can see the history of what people actually sell in their company. So if Elon Musk goes in and sells 10 million worth of shares for cash, it drives down the price of the stock immediately. So the next 10 million sales goes down, next 10 million goes down, so that in truth it's not really worth that. That's just paper money. But we all fall for it. Okay, that's because they push it, because it makes them more powerful to say, well, what that amount? And they try as well. They have pressed people who do this. So I think in summary is, be careful when people claim that they're worth X amount. It's not, okay? So what they usually do then is they go around and say, okay, I'm worth on paper, they go to a bank, I'm worth 400 million. And what they turn around and do then is get a loan on that, okay? So they get a debt on the equity. So in truth, you might compare yourself to them to say, oh goodness, these rich people are living on debt. Yes, not the kind of debt we have. Okay, we're different from them. These guys have loads and loads of equity. They've built up equities in their companies. Okay, the typical person here, I can tell you right now, when they talk of debt, they're going to a bank to borrow, which is not the same as Elon Musk, as Jeff Bezos, as any of these guys who already have so much equity and they're going to borrow. Right? Jay-Z the other day came up, Jay-Z and Beyonce, they came up and they bought a house. The house was worth, I think it was worth 300 million, and they got an equity, or they had equity obviously, but they ended up buying, getting a loan for 150 million. And everyone looked at that, oh my goodness, they bought a house in debt. No, they've got so much equity tied up on their companies, okay? And what happens then, the bank takes lien, right? The bank actually holds that up as collateral, such that they give them a loan, mostly interest-free or really, really low interest-free, because it's now a secured debt. Compared to you and I, if we wanted to go in and get a $10,000 loan, if you got a $10,000 loan, the bank will immediately charge you 9 to 10% immediately, compared to, Jeff Bezos, if he walks through the door, the bank will give him for free because he has the shares. He's going to pledge his shares, even though he won't tell you that. He's going to pledge his shares and then that goes up. So in truth, again, just to summarize, okay, be careful when people say they live on debt. The rich people that are talking to you are not living on debt because they have the cash to go with it. They have the equity to go with it. They have the courses, the guru courses that they sell to you, where you pay them and they use that and debt that they borrow and sell to you. Okay. And in general, don't be surprised as well that they might have a deal with the bank where the bank actually pays them for every loan that they introduce as well. It can happen. I've seen it happen in my years of working in banking. Again, I'm not saying this from just someone who's read this on a book. Again, if you look at most of these gurus, they're all estate agents or real estate, or have done a marketing course or started a marketing business. I've worked in banks all my life, and I still work in fintech, and I continue to do so. So right now I've got customers who actually invest and actually hold our rings where we actually work with banks. Still advise banks, I can tell you right now, and banks rely on debt because the debt are serviceable. The debt actually gives them interest, and that's why they can afford to actually keep the buildings and the lights on. The other point then is, oh my goodness, leverage is good. It's a funny one. I wonder how angry I'm going to get at some point with these videos. So here's the other point. Leverage is good because it amplifies return, so you can get it as much as you can. There's a lot of videos out there on this one. That's not true. Okay, here's the fact. Leverage amplifies loss. Okay, that's the truth. And loss happens more than the wins. Yeah, so if you think about that, so if you take a let's say 1 to 10 margin, okay, so 1 to 10 leverage, that means for every one that you win, okay, you make 10 back. 1 to 10. Okay, so if you put $10 in, you make $100. You put £10 in, you make £100. That's good. But here's the point: your odds of winning is 1 to 10 as well. So that means it's more likelihood that even if you're lucky enough to win one, you're always going to lose eventually, and a lot more. Your odds of winning is very, very low. You're up against traders. Traders do this for all through their lives, and they lose. Okay, you can go in and check most of the banks. So I worked at Credit Suisse, even better UBS. I worked at UBS when one of the top traders, Kweku, you can check him out. Kweku had this issue where, give or take, you don't know, okay, let's be honest. Actually, he went to court, he went to prison for this. But he was a trader, okay, and then he did a lot of leverage trades where he lost a lot of money and kept going, okay. And you know yourself with gambling, you have to keep going, you have to keep doubling, and when you double, eventually you win, you make the losses back. But here's the point: it happens like the top traders actually lose money. They're not talk of you who's coming to $5,000 and someone tells you, oh my goodness, I've got the best option strategy possible. If those guys have strategy, they will not be on the course. Don't be selling the course to you even for 10,000, because that 10,000, they can use that, go with 10-to-1 leverage and actually make even more money than selling to you. And they don't love you that much to give you that information for free. Okay, so please, we say this over and over again. Be careful with gurus who claim that they know the trading strategy. And again, I've said it, you can look this up. Anybody, just look at their first name, last name, you can see their CV. If for some reason they've gone in and done a course for 1 year, 6 months, even 2 years, they are not traders. Okay, if someone has gone in and was a pastor, okay, and I'll call the names, or you can look this up. A lot of people are pastors. You go in, you're a pastor for 6 years, and then you turn around and you're a trader the next day, you're a business coach the next day. Sorry, you don't know what you're talking about. And then they charge you for these things, right? You can see it for free for YouTube. I'm giving you for free now, right? I'm not charging, okay? Apart from, obviously, you need to download our app, money save, and use it, or use your bank. That's the point. You can use your bank or use our bank. It doesn't matter. It's a fintech app. Okay, we just provide service, but these guys they do nothing other than giving you information and obviously giving you that boost of morale, which people want to hear. But it's an expensive lesson. Okay, very, very expensive at the end of the day when you can just get it for free online. So please, leverage is a very risky tool and is used for top seasoned traders. However, those traders make losses, and it's worse on you who are not a trader, who's just read a course and you want to go for it. Okay, I've worked over 20 years. I worked in banking, and I actually worked side by side with traders who we actually would create rules around them on how to work and how to limit their exposure. So they always want to go, okay, humans who want to try and win at all costs. Traders always want to do that, but we try and limit that as much as possible. Yeah, and the same thing as well with my company as well. Obviously, I've got traders as well who actually try and we try and make money on the app. We stop that. So for us, we're fintech. We don't want to make money from trading. So I stop my traders from making. You have no obligation. If you're my trader, you try and make money. The moment you make money, you're in trouble with me. Okay, so I make sure my traders don't make money. I think a lot of banks as well, the approach is not to make money. I mean, some banks do proprietary trading where they try and make money, but most banks, I can tell you, the traders there are not there to make money. They're there to actually hedge a position. They're there to make sure that the equities or the bonds that are there, they can go ahead and buy it so they can sell it to customers and make some money. That is how most banks make money. And those you see online, the hedge fund guys are actually there to actually do some proprietary trading. And those guys, I can tell you, just read this, go online and check. They don't make as much money. That's the truth. They don't. The risk that they take doesn't compensate for it. They were looking at hedge funds the other day, have this 20-20, 80-20 rule where they actually charge up to 20% in terms of performance. And you can check this up with Warren Buffett. He said it as well several times. You could just put the money in the S&P. The S&P would always, S&P is just an index that just takes the average of all the stocks and all the equities, puts it together into a box, into a basket, and you can invest in that. That has consistently outperformed any trader. So you need to think about it and go, wait a minute, then is there any point having a trader? All right. So that's key. Please be careful. Leverage is so big. It's good, okay, if you know what you're talking about. But in general, most people don't, including traders themselves. Yeah, so please be careful with that one. Mortgage interest is deductible. That's true. Okay, mortgage interest is deductible in some countries, but it's good to keep a big mortgage. That's not true. So here's the point. Most of us actually buy houses that are bigger than we want, okay? I'm listening as well, I'm talking. And that's the case. So you go and you end up buying a big house, especially if you're outside the country. And then what happens then is, because you're nervous about outgrowing the house, then before you know it, you end up buying more than you should. So be careful with that one. I think, in my opinion, you need to try and optimize and look into your interests. So look into your tax, talk to a tax advisor. I'm not a tax advisor, I'll tell you that one for free. So talk to your tax advisors before you decide to get into any more mortgage or remortgage your house, because there's tax implications. And while it's true in general that your interest can be deductible against your income and against your taxes, but please talk to an advisor on that one. Don't listen to anyone about it, including me. Okay, and I'll tell you, I'm not a tax advisor. I could know a little bit about taxes in terms of, just on the business side, but the overall scheme on how taxes should be done and how it should be accounted for. I'm not a tax advisor, so I'll give you that one for free. Then the other point, student loans and loans always pay themselves. And that's a tricky one in this day and age. Okay, so a lot of gurus will say that, oh my goodness, student loans. Actually, it's the other way around. That's interesting. This question came this way. Let me start with one, okay? It depends on the course. I'll do both sides. This question wasn't asked, but I'm going to say it anyway. So student loans pay for themselves. That's true, but it depends on the course. So be careful with this, okay? And I'll get into the other part of this. So a lot of students believe that if they go to university, they must make money. I see a lot of people coming out with, funky degrees like, oh my goodness, I did a degree in sociology or linguistics, 4 years, and I still don't have a job. Things have changed because you haven't invested in a degree. Again, this is your time. You're investing your time. When you sit down for 4 years, especially in this day and age, if you sit down for 4 years in a school, you're investing your time, your youth. Then you're investing money, because it costs money to go there these days. So you invest those two together and you need to come out with something that's good. So understandably, and I remember this as a kid, you sit down there, you fight, you want to go for the simplest courses possible. I'll tell you one thing for free, life is not free. Life is not easy. So if you do an easy course like theater, like linguistics, like marketing, things like that, okay, I shouldn't crap on marketing. Marketing is good, but compared to physics and maths, yourself, marketing is a lot easier. But in truth is, be careful with the degrees you do, because the degrees you do dictates the job you have after. Most jobs, courses pay for themselves, but it has to be a worthwhile course. Okay, it has to be a course that's good, because already the market is saturated. Everyone goes to universities these days. Okay, you have some courses where some countries like Switzerland, I think Nordics also do this as well, where they accentuate lots of apprenticeships. So if you're an apprentice or if you go to university, then you're sure that when you get out of university, you're going to get a job. Or if you go in and become an apprentice, you will have a placement, which helps. So my point is, please be careful about the university courses you select, because that impacts you. And I say this from experience, obviously. And I've worked in banking all my life, and it wasn't easy to get in there, I can tell you. And I'm also in Switzerland. It was the hardest place to get into. The UK, in London, New York as well. So those places you have to keep applying, you have to keep working, such that your degree is almost nothing. When you get your degree, you're just there. Now you need to fight, get the experience, you have to fight, get into the interview and fight your way through. Life is tough. So in my opinion, I think degrees pay for themselves, but it's a starting point. One, it has to be a good course, and number two, you have to fight your way through that. Okay. And then the other part of this now becomes a lot of gurus also say this, oh my God, school is a waste of time. Okay. Oh my God, it's a waste of time. The school doesn't teach you this. That's not true. Okay. Done. Like if anyone tells you that, you have to ask them, did you go to school and did you finish? If you dropped out of school, then sorry, you can't really say it. You're lucky to make it. So if you look at and anyone's going to point to, so most of these gurus point to, Zuckerberg and go, Zuckerberg dropped out of uni. How about that? Or you talk about Elon Musk, he dropped out of masters. How about that? Now here's the point. How many Zuckerberg do you see in the world? Oh wait, a lot. How many Elon Musk do you see in the world? Not a lot. So here's the point. Your degree or your likelihood of making it's really like it magnifies when you go to universities or when you go to a course. You do a master's, it goes up. You do a PhD, it goes up. If you went in and someone walked in front of you and I went to MIT, you're going to stop on your tracks, okay? Compared to someone who says nothing. Okay, I'm not talking about dropout. That's different. I'll talk about dropouts in a minute. But if you go in and you say you went to MIT, you call the person straight on. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you look at the person and go, this person is hardworking, okay? Because it takes a lot to get into that school. They're self-starter, okay? Because it takes a lot to actually then go ahead and within the applicants, you actually make it in that sea of applicants that went for the course. So that's a tough one, okay? And then lastly as well, they endured to the end. So 4 years was very, very good. You see what I mean? So that's important where people mix. And I'm not trying to say that everyone has to go to university. You don't have to go to university. For some reason, especially the way academics are set up these days, and the AI revolution is coming in, so that you don't have to sit for 4 years, to study even computer science for 4 years. Sorry, you could do something for 6 months and get an AI to do it. Without sitting there for 4 years to study linguistics anymore, because they have apps that do that these days. However, you have to sit there to do engineering. You have to sit there to do law, because law, again, you still have to interpret and actually write these things down, okay? But you don't have to maybe sit there to do poetry, because poetry you can go out and do in 6 months. You don't have to sit there for 4 years for that. So my point is there are different courses you need to do. Okay, if you want to quote me on this one, just quote me on the fact that there are specific courses that are still needed and required in the future. However, some are not needed. However, going to university just shows a lot more commitment. It shows you a lot more about critical thinking that you need to do, especially as a young adult. Okay, anyone who tells you, "Oh my God, I didn't go to university and look at how well I'm doing," they are not telling the truth of how tough it's been for them. So ask them and go, how tough was it compared to if you had gone in and sat in school for 4 years? You've come out with a lovely CV that you can get a job out of. And these guys, they will tell you, but they've worked so hard. These gurus work so hard. They work so hard that they could have just gone to university and it would have been easier for them. Truth, right? They go in and they're like, oh my goodness, the school won't teach you this. They don't teach you how to save money. Well, the school is not going to teach you how to save money. I'll tell you what the school is going to teach you. The school is going to teach you about discipline, right? You're going to go to university. Your mom and dad are not there. You have to learn how to manage. That's what you learn. You also have to learn how to be social, because you're now talking to other people and not sitting at home. Okay, you're not sitting behind a keyboard. You're talking to people, you're becoming social, and that's a real life experience. So what school teaches you is a lot more than just studying. A lot of people, again, I see these jokes on Facebook where they go, that's one more day I didn't use algebra. That's true, didn't use algebra. But guess what algebra teaches you? Critical thinking, puzzles, solving puzzles, which you're doing now, right? But if you call someone who's done a maths degree, they'll fly through a puzzle like that, because they can think critically, logically, and argue properly, right? So that's what I'm trying to say there. So that's one myth, please guys, that's one myth to dispel immediately, okay? And anyone that tells you school is a waste of time, rich dad, poor dad, he says this a lot, oh my God, school is a waste of time. But where is he now? And where are the people who've paid him so much, right? And what has he done? What has he done? If you look at even like the tough life he has now, what has he done together? If he had gone to university, would it have been easier for him? I think so. It would have been a lot easier for him to get there, right? So that's something to look at. Please guys, don't fall for that. Anyone that tells you that, that's only because, in my opinion, there's always a reason why, okay? So for some reason, if you're dyslexic, okay, or for some reason you prefer the art and craft route, then I agree. I think then you should go ahead and not go to uni, okay? If for some reason you want to do a course like, I don't know, you want to be a pilot, you don't have to go to uni for 4 years for that. You can look at things and try, okay, and make sure that, you're going for a course that you want to do, or you want to do what you want to do in life. But what you want to do in life, then you have to look at and make sure that it's at least in line with what's out there, and not just blow money, waste money unnecessarily as well. Okay, I say about wasting money because it happens with the MBA. So that brings me to the MBA, which is the last point. So MBAs are a tough one for me because, again, I thought about the MBA, I considered it. In fact, I applied for the MBA, and I started. So I'm one of those dropout people as well. So I started for the MBA, and within 3 months to 6 months, I looked at it and I went, not doing it, because it was so clear that it was about the money. And I ended up doing computer science at the University of Oxford. The MBA, I did the MBA at University of London, and I could tell straight away, number one, the fees is high, okay? And for good reason, okay? So why? I can tell you right now, in terms of the fees, people go to university, they go to MBA, and normally it should be a master's in business administration. That's the truth. So I'm always good at looking at these things objectively and abstractly. It's a master's, and that means it should be what you do straight after university. It's a master's. That's all it is. But then it became a lot more commercialized because now people started looking at it and going, wait a minute, it doesn't just have to be a master's, or why don't we get people with experience? Now, if you bring in people that have got 3 to 5 years experience, those people have money to spend. In fact, most of these guys will be associates in investment banks where the banks actually pay for them. Yeah, so for me, if I'd stayed at the Bank of New York where I worked at the time, they were going to pay for me, and I was a VP, so they were ready to pay for, I think, up to 75% of the fees. And I had to put a business case together. However, you'll be stuck with them, so I didn't want to do that as well. And so I went there and said, I'm going to do it myself, and I'll see how much it is. At the end of the day, I didn't pay up to 5,000 euros the pounds at the time. But what was key, which I could tell, was that it was about the money. There wasn't a master's in computer science or a master's in engineering or master's in any other, master's in economics as well, by the way. So you don't have to do these things, right? You could go in and do a master's straight away from university, and you learn a bit more than you'd have done in your degree. Do your thesis, you have to learn how to do your essay, how to do critical thinking, how to produce an original material, which is missing today. Which, as you see with AI, you're going to need that. You're going to learn you're going to learn how to create your own original material, because that'll be the future. That's what AI is going to analyze and build on. That's why people get ahead. But with the MBA, I can tell you is about commercialization. I could tell, some MBA programs are running up to 150K at the moment. And then you have your hotels, and then you come out of university. I don't say this in a bad way, obviously. My co-founders, 2 of them have got MBAs. But they come out of universities, and the first thing they say is, oh my goodness, I got a good network. Again, with my University of Oxford, with computer science, connection or networking was the least. Okay, it was more or less about critical thinking, learning, the prestige or the CV, and then the last point is always the connection. But when you go to an MBA, the first thing that comes out is the connection. You have to be like, wait a minute, so you're paying 150 for connections for an alumni network where you can get from LinkedIn? Unless the alumni network will get you a job, then there's an ROI there. Then you have a return on your investment. But in truth, most of these don't. They just give you an alumni network, okay, a badge, a ring that you wear, and you're happy with it, which to me is a waste of time. And it will be a waste of time eventually. So mark my words, this time, 10 years time, I think MBAs are going to struggle a lot. The programs would have to learn to either place people in jobs, okay, or go ahead and actually provide value for customers, value for students, right? As opposed to just sending them out to the world and just getting as many fees as possible. It was the same thing with the CFA. I remember talking about the CFA, which is for those in finance, the Chartered Financial Analyst program, which was really, really hard. But I did level 1 of that, and I could see it was hard. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, what's coming out of this? Are you going to get me a placement, or are you just going to put it on my CV? And then you hope I get a job. If the point is just I'm going to get a job, I might as well just go get a job. And then I applied to get a job. And all those jobs that needed the CFA, I was able to get in because I had the experience and the knowledge, which I think, and that's why the CFA as a career, as a qualification went down. There could be a few more like that as well. So things like that is where I agree with the gurus a little bit. And I think this has gone too long as well, by the way. But this is the gurus are right in that sense, where if they pick a qualification and go, oh my God, there's no need to go to school for that course, I agree. So there's no need to go to school for linguistics, I agree. There's no need to go to school for theater for 4 years, I agree, because there are shorter courses you can do. However, for you to say there's no need to go to school at all because it's a waste of time, schools don't teach you this, that's not true. Or you're going into the matrix because they didn't go to university, that's not true. Those guys are working harder than you if you had gone to university for 3 to 4 years and you're out with a qualification or with some experience. So that's all. I'm going to stop here now. I'm going to stop ranting about these gurus. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.